University Pendidikan Sultan Idris is located in Tanjung Malim, Perak. It is approximately 70 km north of Kuala Lumpur and 120 km south of Ipoh via the North-South Expressway. It takes about 2 hours for students to travel from UPSI to Kuala Lumpur regardless of the type of vehicle they are riding in. Usually, students will go there by public transportations, for example, KTM commuter and buses. Some students also go there by driving their car or by Grab car. However, some students complain about the cost that they have to pay for the journey from UPSI to KLCC. For example, if they use Grab car, the cost is quite pricey and expensive, especially for students with no income and low budget. In addition, there are so many expenses that students need to deal with, other than transportation, food, toiletries, books, utilities, and rent are also some of the financial aspects they need to be mindful of. It is crucial to have better financial management while being a student. Therefore, we decided to find ways to minimize the cost of transportation from Tanjung Malim to KLCC for students. After some short research at public transport services in Tanjung Malim to KLCC, it shows several problems that can make it difficult for students to use public transport because they need to minimize the cost for a one-way trip from UPSI to KLCC. Using public transport is plentiful with problems that might be experienced in students. There are some examples of problems that students of UPSI experience when using public transport. Public also has a problem to know about the current price tickets or any updates. Second is, when using public transport, which is KTM commuter, LRT and monorail, they have to wait for a long time because the service is too slow and sometimes they have to wait for the next train to come within 15 to 20 minutes. Another problem that exists for public transport is students do not know the estimated time for their destination when they want to plan a journey. This long travel time causes stress, which encourages students to switch to using alternative transportation to reduce the extra stress in commuting. The objectives of this study are: the first one is to minimize the cost of public transportations for a one-way trip from UPSI to KLCC. The second one is to determine the best possible ways to travel from UPSI to KLCC by using public transportations. The third one is to propose the optimization method for the cost planning with mathematical modeling. Minimizing the cost of transportation is very important and beneficial for students. By reducing their expenses on transportation, they can save money for other important things and no need to spend more on transportation. This project can help students to choose which is the best possible way to travel from UPSI to KLCC based on the least cost that students will have to incur. It also can help students to manage their finances better. In order to achieve the aim of this project, we will be using linear programming to solve the problem and get the best solution.
The concept for the public transportation is in Zimmer 2019 state that transportation network include both private and public vehicle as well as the roads, railways and other infrastructure that they rely on. Literature concept for linear programming. First, Ahmad et al. 2020 state that linear programming, also known as linear optimization, is the problem of maximizing or minimizing a linear function over a convex polyhedron and non-negativity constraint. For Whelan in 2018 state that linear programming is very important in the area of applied mathematics and has a large number of users and applications in many industries. For Azlan et al. 2017, they said that there are various methods to perform the solution programming, and one of the earliest is simplex methods, which is the most constructive tool to educate, work out linear programming problems, solve and serve as a foundation to design other methods. The transportation problem (TP) is an important linear programming model. So the research of TP has laid the foundation for the further theoretical and algorithm development of the minimum cost network flow problem. Stringer and Haley in 2008 state that each unit of production cost function has a fixed form of charge. So it developed a solution using mechanical simulation. The algorithm of Rom and Ray may be the first algorithm to find the best solution to the incapacitated traffic flow problem.
There are a lot of related works in our study. In 2017, Ahmad et al. Proposed a new approach to finding a basic and workable solution to the city's traffic issues. In 2020, Binti et al. Proposed three methods to solve the transport problem by minimizing the overall cost of transport from origin to destination by meeting supply and demand limits in order to increase sales profit. Next, in 2019, Zimmer proposed a method of optimizing public transportation on a college campus that touches on every factor important to Indiana University campus bus service, which can apply to other public transportation systems as well. Lastly, in 2021, Shaw et al. Developed a linear dual model based on the resource allocation principle and the economic significance of shadow pricing. A linear dual model was used to calculate the subsidy, and the base unit price of the shadow subsidy was determined. In this study, after defining the identified problem, we select the secondary data to use in order to solve the problem. The sources of secondary data includes books, journals, websites, and more. In our case, the data was gathered from the official website and application. We have gathered various data from official rail transport websites such as MyRapid, MRT Corp, and KTM Commuter. For the application, we use the data from the Grab application. We use all this data to get accurate information.
Hi, my name is Umairah and I'm going to explain about the model formulation and the result. In order to solve the linear programming problem, the first step is we need to understand the problem. Then, define the decision variables. After that, write the objective functions and the constraint in terms of the decision variables. Lastly, identify any upper or lower bounds on the decision variables. And here is the example of model formulation. In order to solve this problem, we need to realize that there are 4 choices of way to go on a one-way trip to KLCC. Other than that, the public transportation used from one location to another location is defined as follows. Here is the formulation that we got. For the decision variables, X1 is the number of Grab transportation boarding frequency and X2 is the number of rail transportation boarding frequency. For the objective function, minimum Z is the minimum of the estimated public transportation cost, and the constraint for this model is the estimated waiting time and the time taken to arrive at the next stop. Based on the model formulation obtained from the information and data collected, we use Excel solver to solve the problem as shown. The result from the Excel solver shows that the value for X1 is 1 and the value for X2 is 0. On the other hand, the value for the minimum Z is 15.725. That means the minimum of the estimated public transportation cost is Rm 15.725 and the best choice of way to go on a one-way trip to KLCC is to go for choice 3, since the number of Grab transportation boarding frequency and rail transportation boarding frequency is 1 and 0 respectively.
Next is the discussion of 2 parts in the sensitivity report. First part is variable cells. In this section, we can identify the optimal solution, the coefficient or the parameters in the objective function, the allowable increases and the allowable decrease for each of the individual coefficient in the objective functions, which allow us to guarantee that the current optimal solution is maintained. Next is constraints. One of the first aspects to observe is if there is an active constraint when evaluating for the optimal solution. An active constraint is that which is satisfied when equal. Based on the sensitivity report, there are only two active constraints, which is constraint 5 and 6. In the value below the final value column is identical to the right side of the constraint.
In general, the use of linear programming in minimizing public transportation costs for students is very effective. This study focused on the students of UPSI with the aim of applying linear programming for transportation cost optimization. This study has developed a linear programming model by identifying the objective function, decision variables, and constraints. Optimum plan and solution to minimize the total cost of public transportation were formulated and analyzed. Certainly, linear programming is an alternative decision tool available to all students to effectively and efficiently find the lowest cost possible for their expense on public transportation.